this is what my fantasy of what a model is, or a playmate is, or a rock star wife is, or what anything is. I'm going to do it the best. And I've been playing these characters along the way, and it just hit me a couple of years ago, and I was like, just shaking my head going, who am I?
Hello everyone, it's your friend of a friend, and today we are talking about Pamela Anderson. Now what made me want to do a video on her is her appearance at the Met Gala. So when I did my Met Gala video, feel free to check that video out after this one, I was labeling everyone and who they were wearing, and I came across Pamela Anderson's photo, and I was like, who the hell is this? And when I went to look it up, I honestly thought it was a misprint because I haven't seen much of Pamela Anderson lately, and I had what she used to look like in my mind. Jaws dropped as she was escorted into the gala with her son Brandon Lee. The Pamela Anderson of today has been signed off on the Pamela Anderson of yesteryear. She described that version of herself, the icon, the sex symbol, as a caricature of a woman she thought she had to be to become successful in Hollywood. Pamela Anderson, the Canadian-born actress, model, and animal activist, has been a star since she posed for Playboy magazine all the way back in 1989. Pamela Anderson holds the record of posing for the publication 14 times, more than anyone else in the magazine's history. Ironically, Anderson has been critical of the online imagery, calling it quote-unquote a public hazard of unprecedented seriousness. In 2016, she co-authored a viral opinion article in the Wall Street Journal with Orthodox Rabbi Shmuley Boteach. The two also co-wrote a book together. The book is called The Lust for Love, which was published in 2018. The book discusses the decline in intimacy for hookup culture and called for a new sensational revolution that emphasizes partners connecting emotionally in the bedroom. Pamela's stance on the spicy entertainment likely stems from the leak and exploitation of hers and then husband, musician Tommy Lee's infamous tape that was never intended for the masses to see and ended up on the internet for the world to view. Very intimate and private moments shared between the couple. The couple sued to get the video taken down and lost in court. The tape did tarnish Pamela Anderson's image for a time, but she is also known for her work on the ABC sitcom Home Improvement, and then later landing the role of CJ Parker in the series Baywatch, which cemented her role and status as a sex symbol. Towards the early 2000s, acting roles began drying up as she made guest appearances in films like Scary Movie 3, Bob Wire, and even starring in her own reality show Pam, Girl on the Loose in 2018, and appearing as a contestant on Dancing with the Stars in 2010, 2012, and 2018. What really kept Pam Anderson's name in the headlines were a string of failed marriages and relationships. First to rocker Tommy Lee, who she married and divorced twice, and the two share two boys, Brandon Lee and Dylan Jagger. Her second marriage was to Kid Rock. They married and divorced 1 year later. The same year that she divorced Kid Rock, she went on to marry Rick Solomon, and then they ended up getting their marriage annulled the same year, only to remarry him in 2014 and divorce him in 2015. Pam Anderson appears to be very indecisive when it comes to men. Pamela Anderson and John Peters dated back in 1989, reunited in 2019, tied the knot in 2020, and just 2 weeks later, they called it quits. She then took another trip down the aisle and married Dan Hayhurst in 2020, and they divorced in 2022. Fun fact, Pam Anderson has had a total of 9 different weddings, and not nary of one was held on a plantation. You know your friend of a friend couldn't resist being petty. Anyway, at 57 years old, Pamela Anderson has successfully rebranded herself. Gone are the brassy blonde, big-haired extensions. She now sports a soft pale blonde that better suits her. The most jaw-dropping of changes is she boldly wears no makeup, allowing her natural skin to breathe and her freckles to shine through. Every wrinkle is prominent. I don't know if she has given up the Botox and fillers yet, but her youthful appearance could be accredited to her vegan diet. She is even living out my personal dream of having a garden, growing her own food, and she even dropped a cookbook where she shares all her vegan recipes and her love of cooking with her fans. Her cookbook is called I Love You by Pamela Anderson, Recipes from the Heart. She deflated her signature 38H implants, returning to her natural bust size, as she is quoted as saying, "I just wanted my body to return to its original state." And my absolute favorite part of her outer transformation is she got rid of them tacky, barely there clothes, and she's giving the girls fashion, and dare I say at times class. Come on through, growth. She's gone from posing on the cover of sticky men's magazines to gracing the cover of high fashion glossy magazines. And what's most remarkable is that Pamela Anderson stands in line with a lot of women who rose to prominence for their beauty. Whether it was artificial or natural, a great many of them have succumbed to the pressures of being a sex symbol and left us early before we could watch them fade from being the object of every man's fantasy to a mature woman who is still fighting to maintain her sex symbol status, or has gracefully bowed out to step aside for the next generation of young beauties to take her place. And I'm not trying to say that just because you age, you're no longer considered desirable or attractive, but we know that there's a very short shelf life for women, especially in Hollywood, when the newness and the infatuation wears off and they are looking for the next new phase. Honestly, it's getting really bad with everyday people. If anyone has ever been on the Instagram app Threads, you will see random accounts of women and men announcing that they are in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, wanting to know if they look good for their age. Basically, do they look younger than their years? Looking for validation from complete strangers. Our society has a real problem with aging, wanting to do so without looking like it. And so many women who are in the sex symbol position, whether they age or become mothers, have a hard time relinquishing the image of themselves because so many of their identities or brands are wrapped around them being the women that every man wants to sleep with or the women that every woman wants to emulate or look like. Take Carmen Electra, who I feel like at one point was Pamela Anderson's brunette counterpart. At 53 years old, she looks amazing for her age, or really any age, but she really isn't letting her status go at all. It is clear she is out here competing with girls half her age, and she is giving them competition, but at 53, it does look a little sad, desperate, and a little silly that she's still out here doing the most to maintain the male gaze. And again, I'm not saying that you can no longer be sexy at 50, but there's a way to do it that it doesn't give try hard. I think Pamela Anderson is showing the girls how it's done. When I was watching recent interviews of her, I was pleasantly surprised at how likable she really is. Her newfound confidence and inner glow makes her a mesmerizing beauty now. Having the confidence to say I have had my time to shine and to pass the baton to the next generation without it being snatched from her demonstrates that she knows she has more to offer than a pretty face and her body. Her new phase of life has even resurrected her career. She has been able to land more serious roles like playing Roxy Hart in the musical Chicago or in The Last Showgirl, where she received lots of praise for her acting and portrayal of an older woman at the end of her career as a Vegas showgirl. I recently saw the movie and I think she really added heart and depth to the character, and it was probably elements of that character's life that mirrored her own, trying to navigate in a world that elevates you for your looks and will happily destroy you when you no longer do it for them. My only critique of her performance was that she speaks in this breathy baby voice that worked my nerves so bad. Especially when her character was trying to be assertive and stand up for herself. I was like, girl, if you don't take your voice up an octave or two, I'm gonna scream. But other than that, she did great. She received a Golden Globe nomination for Best Actress as well as a Screen Actors Guild nomination. And if you haven't seen the movie yet, it also stars Jamie Lee Curtis, Brenda Song, and Kiernan Shipla. It is unclear if Pamela Anderson is in a new romantic relationship, but she seems to be in a great one with herself. She has done the inner and outer work and continues to do her philanthropic work for various charities. Her sons say that she's a great mom. And I found a meme that best describes Pam 2.0. It says, "What happened to the Baywatch beauty? She lived happily ever after, not giving a single F what anyone thinks."